The monster was the size of a city bus and made of leftover alien junk. Spider-Man swung past its head and winced as it roared, a wet metal sound that rattled windows. Chitauri armor plates were welded to its skin. Stark tech glowed in its chest like a stolen arc reactor. It slapped a car aside and sent it rolling down the street like a tin can. "Okay, so. Note to self," Peter muttered inside the mask. "Never let Stark leave alien scrap in unsecured storage." He fired 2 webs, hit the monster's face, and yanked. It barely flinched. People ran in every direction, screaming. Taxi horns blared like they didn't understand that a giant biometal rhino thing did not care about traffic laws. "Avengers, little help," he said into his comm. "I've got a kaiju made of bad decisions on 42nd. "On our way, kid," came Cap's voice, calm as ever. 2 minutes, Tony added. "Try not to die, so we don't have to do the guilt speech again." "Wow, the support," Peter said, dodging as a claw smashed the building where he'd been a second ago. The sky above the monster flickered. Peter felt it before he saw it. The hairs on his arms rose under the suit. His spider sense screamed in a way that felt different, not like a punch was coming, like the whole sky might fall. He swung up high, perched on a streetlight that bent under his weight in the wind. His eyes in the mask widened. The air split. It didn't open like a normal portal. It cracked. A jagged red-white wound spread across the blue, like someone had drawn a line and then pushed the 2 halves apart. Light poured through, harsh and wrong. Something fell out of it. A shape. A man, on fire. He wasn't really burning. The flames were air friction, wrapped around him as he dropped faster than anything Peter had ever seen. Faster than Iron Man at full boost. Faster than Thor's hammer throw. A sonic boom slammed into the buildings and shattered glass for a block. The monster looked up. The falling man hit it. There was no build-up, no fancy pose. He just punched downward as he fell, one arm forward, second hand clenched at his side. His fist drove into the creature's skull and kept going. Flesh and stolen metal exploded outward in a ring. The whole thing slammed into the street hard enough to crack the asphalt in a spiderweb pattern. Cars bounced, streetlights toppled. Peter felt the shock in his bones. Dust and steam blew outward. Spider-Man stared. The man in the crater stood slowly. He had blood on his mustache and on his gloved knuckles. A blue suit, torn and scorched, clung to his frame. A red cape flapped behind him in the broken wind. There was a symbol on his chest Peter didn't recognize. Red and yellow, sharp lines. He looked tired. Not out of breath, just tired in the eyes. Peter's reflexes kicked back him first. He fired 2 webs and wrapped them around the guy's shoulders. Hi," he shouted, bracing his feet on the edge of a wrecked truck. "Welcome to New York. Gonna need you to step away from the giant corpse and put your hands..." The man frowned, glanced at the webs, and flexed. The webbing snapped like old thread. Peter swallowed. "Okay, that's new." Repulsor blasts roared overhead. Iron Man dropped from the sky and hovered, palm beams ready, plates shifting as he scanned. The HUD inside his helmet filled with numbers that were all wrong. "Whoever you are," Tony called, "this is private property. That includes the planet. Let's do the talky part before the smashy part, yeah?" The stranger turned his head. His eyes glowed faintly as he studied the armor, the skyline, the debris. He didn't raise his fist. He didn't back down either. "I saved your city," he said. His voice was deep, calm, softly angry. "You're welcome." "Debatable," Tony muttered, seeing the crater, the wrecked cars, the terrified civilians. His sensors were screaming. Energy levels, mass, speed estimates. The computer suggested probabilities for strength and durability. They were higher than anything on Earth that wasn't Gamma or God. "Tony," Cap's voice said in his ear, "what are we looking at?" "Big, strong and cranky," Tony replied. "And not from around here. Scans say alien biology. Human-shaped, but no, this is something else." A gold-orange ring of sparks spun open above a rooftop. Doctor Strange stepped through, cloak billowing. He stared up at the tear in the sky, then down at the crater, and his eyes narrowed. He could feel the wound in reality like a toothache. "That is not one of mine," he said. The tear came first, then him. "Cool," Peter said. "So we've got a sky cut and a murder Superman." The stranger looked up at them, at the ring of light, at the futuristic armor, at the man in red and blue still clinging to a bent streetlight with webs. His jaw tightened. "This isn't my Earth," he said quietly. He floated up out of the crater without effort. Crushed concrete fell from his boots. Iron Man shifted position, aiming carefully. Spider-Man readied fresh web lines. Strange's fingers twitched with growing light. More shapes arrived. A thunderclap signaled Thor landing on a nearby building, Mjolnir in hand. The distant roar of engines marked Quinjet wings cutting through the air. Captain America landed on the street with a roll, shield in hand, eyes never leaving the man in the cape. The stranger's gaze swept across them. He saw the shield, the hammer, the armor, the magic. He saw the way they surrounded him without closing in. He hovered there in the middle of shattered New York, suspended between a broken monster and a broken sky, and let out a slow, steady breath. "If this isn't my world," he said, more to himself than to them, "then whose rules apply here?" Nobody answered. The tear above them pulsed, like something on the other side was listening. Hours later, the fight footage played on a dozen screens at once. One feed showed the falling figure in slow motion, flames boiling around him as he barreled through the atmosphere. Another showed the impact, frozen frame by frame. A third had Spider-Man's shaky helmet cam, which captured the whole thing from street level, including his nervous commentary. Tony Stark stood in front of the screens with his arms folded, still in his undersuit. His hair was messy. There was a small cut on his cheek from stray glass. He ignored it. "Hit rewind," he said. Friday rewound the footage of the punch. Again. Cap watched beside him, eyes narrowed. Bruce Banner sat at a table behind them with a pad of paper covered in scribbles and math. Natasha leaned against the wall. Thor had his arms crossed, hammer resting lightly in one hand. Nick Fury stood a little apart, saying nothing, just watching. The conference room at the Avengers compound was quiet except for the hum of machines. On the screen, the stranger hit the monster again. Crater, shockwave, rolling cars. "From the numbers," Bruce said, tapping his pad. "That punch was at least, I don't know, multi-story building level. And he didn't even seem to try. If he really went all out, we'd have a new hole in the city," Tony finished, "or the planet. His biology is nothing I recognize," Bruce went on. "Denser muscle, different organ layout. That blood sample we got from the air, thanks Strange, doesn't match any database. Not Kree, not Asgardian, not anything SHIELD ever catalogued." Fury's one eye flicked to him. But he's stable," Bruce said. "He's not a walking bomb like me. He's more like a human scaled up, way up." Cap turned from the screens. "He said he saved the city." "He did, and he didn't," Tony said. "He took out the monster. He also totaled 37 cars, 3 shops, and part of the street. I get it. That thing was ugly, but we usually try to keep the property damage below war zone. Thor nodded slowly. He fought as a soldier who has seen many wars. He struck to end the threat. Collateral damage is the price, in his mind. Has Strange confirmed where he came from? Natasha asked. A spark flared at the edge of the room. A small portal opened, and Dr. Strange stepped through like he'd been waiting for his cue. His cloak floated down behind him and settled. I can confirm one thing, Strange said. He did not come from our universe. Tony spread his hands. That's not super comforting, Doc. Strange ignored him and moved to the table, laying down a diagram. Lines and circles layered on a map of Earth. Red marks clustered over New York. The tear above the city was a multiversal fracture, he said. It opened for seconds, maybe less, and dumped one object. Him. The fabric of reality healed itself, but not cleanly. There's a scar in the local space. It will need attention. How does something like that just happen? Cap asked. A random accident. Strange's mouth made a thin line. I doubt it, but I do not yet know the cause. Fury finally spoke. We're wasting time in here. What about him? They all looked at the glass wall. On the other side, the man in the blue suit sat calmly on a bench in a holding cell built for gamma-level threats. The walls were thick, reinforced glass with energy projectors embedded in them. The floor had hidden emitters designed to flood the room with knockout gas or stun fields. He sat with his elbows on his knees, hands hanging loose. His cape pooled on the bench. There was no sign that he cared about the walls. If he wanted to leave, he could. He met their gaze through the glass. Cap's jaw clenched. We're not treating him like a prisoner. Sure feels like a prisoner setup, Tony said. Funny that. He came willingly, Cap said. He said he'd talk. That means we show some trust. It also means we find out how to stop him, Fury said. Just in case. Thor tilted his head. If you wish to stop that man, you will require more than glass and wires. No kidding, Tony muttered. Cap glanced at the clock on the wall. We hear him out, he said. Then we decide. Fury grunted, not agreeing, not disagreeing. They went in together. The door hissed. The air felt cooler inside. Tony walked ahead, armor plates fluttering over his shoulders in case he needed to suit up. Cap followed. Thor, Natasha, and Strange came last. Up close, the man looked older than Peter. Older than most of them, honestly, except Thor. There were lines around his eyes. His hair was black with streaks of grey at the temples. He had the kind of build that made the bench look too small. He looked up as they entered. So, he said, am I being interrogated by a committee? Cap smiled politely. We're here to talk. I'm Steve Rogers. This is Tony Stark, Thor, Natasha Romanoff, and Doctor Strange. You already met Spider-Man. The man's eyes flicked to each of them, weighing, measuring. You can call me Omni-Man, he said. Catchy, Tony said. Real name? He hesitated. Nolan. Tony nodded. Nice to meet you, Nolan. You tore a hole in our sky, punched a monster through the street, and shrugged off my webs. Those were my webs, Peter said faintly through the comm. Tony rolled his eyes. And shrugged off Spider-Man's webs, he corrected. We're all asking the same questions. Who are you, where you're from, and whether we're going to have to invent new levels of insurance for you. Omni-Man's gaze softened for a second at the mention of webs. The boy, he said. He is young. He's fine, Cap said. He's dealt with worse. Probably. Nolan leaned back against the wall. I come from another Earth, he said. Another universe, similar to this. One, In some ways, different in others. I was sent there by an empire called Viltrum to prepare it for conquest. The room went still. Even Tony stopped fiddling with his wrist panel. Conquest, Natasha repeated. Yes, Nolan said. No joke, no shame, just a flat fact. Viltrumites are a warrior race. We have great strength and great longevity. We believe in strength above all. We send agents to worlds that might be useful. We weaken them. When the time is right, we invade. And you were one of those agents, Cap said quietly. Yes. Why are you telling us this? Fury asked from the doorway. Does your empire know you're talking? They think I am dead, Nolan said. Or lost. I left. Why? Thor's voice had a new edge. Warriors of duty do not abandon their posts lightly. For the first time, Nolan's expression cracked. A tiny movement. His eyes lowered. I was sent to my Earth decades ago, he said. I married a woman there. I had a son. Mark. He looked at his own hands. They trembled once, then stilled. For years I lied to them. When the time came, I tried to do my duty. I tried to break the world's defenders. I told my son the truth. I told him I was there to help Viltrum conquer Earth. Cap's stomach twisted. He didn't take it well, I'm guessing, Tony said softly. He fought me, Nolan said. He was young. I beat him. I could have killed him. I should have by Viltrumite law. Instead, I left. I fled. I could not finish the mission. I tore through space. I did not care where I ended up. I thought I would die between stars. He lifted his eyes again, and for a moment, the tired man looked like a weapon left out in the rain. But I didn't die, he said. I woke up falling through your sky. Silence again. Heavy this time. Cap saw the bruise on Nolan's cheek. Not from the monster. Old, deeper. Something that had not healed right on the inside. Where is Mark now? Cap asked. I don't know, Nolan said. I left him crying in a crater on a world full of people I wounded. He could be dead, or he could be stronger than me. He was always stubborn. You abandoned your son, Thor said. It was not said with anger. It was stated like a sentence passed in a court. Yes, Nolan said. I did. Strange watched his face. He could see the ripple of emotion in the aura around him, sharp like broken glass. Regret, shame, pride, deep and old, not yet dead. You said your people think you're dead, Tony said. If they ever find out you're alive and here, they may come, Nolan said, to punish me, to finish what I could not, to claim this universe as well. Cap's hand tightened on his shield. So that's two big problems, Tony said. One, you. Two, your friends. They're not my friends, Nolan said quietly. Not anymore. Does that mean you'll help us stop them if they show up? Fury asked. Nolan thought about that. He took a breath, let it out. Yes, he said. If Viltrum comes here, I will stand against them. Cap studied his eyes. There was no fake in them, just worn stone. Okay, Cap said. That's the start of something. Tony shot him a look. You're serious? We can't send him back, Cap said. We don't even know how he got through. And if we push him away, he can become a problem on his own, or someone else's asset. I am not an asset, Nolan said. No, Cap said, meeting his gaze. You're a soldier who's trying to figure out what he is now. We've had experience with that. Thor grunted in agreement. Strange nodded once. From a cosmic standpoint, we are already involved. The fracture is linked to him. Pushing him away will not mend it. Fury sighed. Fine. We put him on a long leash. Tony rubbed his face. We run tests, he said. Non-invasive. We find out how he works, where his limits are. Then we build safety measures around those. Nolan's mouth twitched. You think you can cage me? No, Tony said. I think I can slow you down. And in my experience, a few seconds can mean the difference between everyone dies and we get a sequel. Natasha's lips almost curved. Cap stepped closer to Nolan. You're free to walk the base, he said. For now. But you follow our rules. You help us protect people. You don't fly off and start wars. Nolan held his gaze. And if I decide you're too weak to protect this world, then we'll have a problem, Cap said. And trust me, we're good with problems. For a moment, Nolan nearly smiled. It didn't quite make it. I will try, he said, to do things your way. Trying is the job, Cap said. Outside the glass, Peter's voice crackled in Tony's ear. So, are we doing welcome snacks? Or is that weird? It's weird, right? Tony exhaled. You know what? Food isn't the worst idea. The Avengers compound cafeteria looked like a high-end airport food court. There were long tables, sleek white counters, and a row of machines that could produce anything from black coffee to a 5-course meal if you knew the right codes. Screens on the walls showed news channels and muted movies. Nolan sat at one of the tables with a tray in front of him. The tray was full. Eggs, bacon, toast, a mountain of pancakes, orange juice in a pitcher. It looked like he had asked for breakfast, and the machine had taken it literally. He stared at it and felt the strangest thing. Hunger. On his Earth, he had eaten with Debbie and Mark many mornings. Normal food at a normal table. He remembered Mark talking about school while he pretended to be an ordinary father. He remembered laughing. He remembered leaving that behind. He picked up a fork and cut a piece of pancake. Syrup shone on it. Maybe, he thought, he could at least finish one quiet meal here. One simple human thing. No mission. Nope. The alarm blared. Red lights flashed. A voice cut over the speakers. Priority alert. Doctor Strange to operations. All Avengers to operations. Multiversal energy spike detected. The fork paused halfway to Nolan's mouth. He closed his eyes. Of course, Cap's voice came over the comms. Everyone to the briefing room. Nolan, that includes you. Nolan looked at the pancakes. He put the fork down slowly. The food steamed, untouched. He stood, left the tray on the table, and headed for the door. The simple human thing could wait. It always did. The map of the world glowed on the main screen in the briefing room, lines pulsing from a point over the Atlantic. Strange pointed at the cluster. Residual energy from the tear, he said. It's not growing, but something is brushing against it from the other side. Something aware. Could it be your Viltrum friends? Tony asked Nolan, who stood at the edge of the room, arms folded. They don't usually hop between universes, Nolan said, but they follow power and opportunity. If they sensed me, it could also be something else, Strange said. The multiverse is not a quiet place. Fury crossed his arms. Run your scans, but until something actually comes through, we stay grounded. The world just watched a stranger fall from the sky. They're already jumpy. Speaking of the world, Natasha said, nodding toward the news feed. One screen showed a talking head in a suit. Behind him, replay of Nolan's punch looped. Mysterious caped figure appears from nowhere, defeats monster in seconds, then is taken into custody by the Avengers, the anchor said. Some are calling him a hero. Others say his powers make him the greatest threat the planet has ever seen. Welcome to Earth, Tony murmured. Nolan watched himself on the screen, the way he moved, the way debris flew. On his Earth, people had seen him like that too, until they saw what he truly was. Can they hear me? He asked. Fury glanced at him. You want to give a press conference? No, Nolan said. Not yet. Good, Fury said, because right now you're a need-to-know subject. Cap ignored them and focused on Nolan. You fought in wars across planets, he said. You said that yourself. You know what invaders look like. We need your eyes on this. Nolan nodded once. Fine. Stranger's hand glowed as he traced symbols in the air. Whatever brushed the tear is gone for now, he said. But it will be back, and next time, it may not just be watching. And if it is your empire, Tony asked Nolan. Then you'll see what Viltrumite war really looks like, Nolan said quietly. He thought of Mark, of Earth, of Debbie's face. He thought of this new world with bright costumes and strange gods. He did not want Viltrum here. For the first time he realized how much that scared him. In a dark castle, far from any news camera, another screen flickered. Dr. Doom watched the footage of Omni-man's descent on a loop, fingers steepled under his metal mask. His cloak hung heavy on his shoulders. The glow of the monitors reflected in his eyes. Impressive, he murmured. His systems had scanned the alien's energy output, flight, strength, durability, all at levels that made most Earth heroes look small. A warrior from beyond reality, he said, cast free from his leash. One of his robots hovered nearby. Do you wish to categorize this subject as a threat, my lord? Everything is a threat, Doom said, or a tool. He zoomed in on Nolan's face, the lines, the tired eyes. This one has broken with his masters, Doom said. He is dangerous. He is also valuable. He turned away from the screen and walked toward a table covered in plans. Run analysis, Doom said. Cross-reference his abilities with vibranium reserves, Latverian arcane nodes, and Baxter building data leaks. I will require a contingency array, and perhaps an invitation. As you command, the robot said. Doom smiled behind the mask. The world was changing. Doom had always known it would. He would not be left behind. Somewhere beyond stars, in a dark throne room lit by cold starlight, a different figure watched a shard of data. The projection showed a rough wireframe of a man in a cape. Numbers floated around it. Mass, speed, density, strike force. Thanos rested his chin on his hand. A new variable, he said, born of another universe. A servant waited nervously. Shall we prepare an army, my lord, to claim this power? Thanos shook his head. No, not yet. He dismissed the projection with a flick of his fingers. The shard of data spun away into the void. Let him move, Thanos said. Let him choose. A tool that wants to be used is more useful than a tool that must be forced. He smiled, just a little. And if he must be broken, Thanos said, we will find the right place to apply pressure. The servant bowed and backed away. Alone, Thanos turned his gaze toward a distant blue world and the tiny fracture in space that now glowed above it. The universe never stopped surprising him. The battle started as a blip on a screen. Tony stood in his lab, armor open around him like a metal flower, when Friday's voice cut into his focus. Boss, external satellites are picking up an anomaly in low orbit, she said. Fast-moving objects incoming. Vector suggests external insertion, not terrestrial launch. Tony blinked away the miniature diagram he'd been tweaking and pulled up a larger projection. Small dots glowed over the curve of Earth. How fast? He asked. Faster than standard missiles, Friday said. Slower than you at full burn. Estimated contact with atmosphere in 4 minutes. Any known? Signature? Tony asked. Negative, she said. Not Chitauri, not Kree, not anything on file. Tony's stomach tightened. Call it in. The compound buzzed seconds later. Cap met him in the hangar, already suited up. Thor dropped down from the sky, with lightning dancing on his shoulders. Natasha and Rhodey hustled toward the Quinjet. Banner walked in, rubbing the back of his neck, the green always close. Nolan stepped in behind them, cape trailing, expression set. "What do we have?" Cap asked. Tony flicked his wrist. A hologram appeared showing the incoming cluster. "Unidentified objects," Tony said. "Coming in from high orbit, using some kind of stealth. They only lit up when they got close. My money's on another round of Welcome to Earth from our space fan club." "Could it be Viltrumites?" Cap asked, glancing at Nolan. "No," Nolan said. "They don't hide like this. They come straight at you." "Charming," Tony muttered. Strange appeared in a burst of sparks. "It's not Viltrumite," he said. "The magical signature is similar to something I have seen near the Titan we call Thanos, but changed." "So test run," Natasha said. "They want to see how we respond." "And what we can do," Cap said. He looked at Nolan. "You coming?" Nolan nodded once. "If this is a test, we should make sure they fail." Tony smirked. "Now that's the spirit." They took off together. Tony in his armor, Thor riding the storm, Strange opening a portal from the hangar straight into the sky. The Quinjet roared after them. Spider-Man swung off a nearby tower, already suited up. He landed on the Quinjet hull and clung there like a bug on a speeding car. "Hey, anyone else getting deja vu?" he said. "Sky thing. Aliens. Panic." "Focus, kid," Cap said, but his voice was warm. As they climbed higher, the air thinned. The blue of the sky darkened. Stars pricked the edge of vision. The incoming objects grew larger on Tony's display. They were ships, sleek, blade-shaped, bristling with weapons. Smaller than Thanos' main carrier, but still dangerous. "Black Order style," Tony said. "Great." The first volley of energy beams streaked down. "Break," Cap shouted. The Quinjet rolled. Tony dove. Thor spun his hammer and knocked one blast aside. Strange brought up a shimmering shield that turned another into scattered sparks. One beam shot past them toward the city. Nolan flashed forward. To the others was a blur. To him, the world slowed. He pushed past the others, air screaming around him. The beam burned toward a cluster of office towers. He met it halfway, crossing its path, and felt it slam into his chest. It hurt, not much, like a strong punch. He grunted and pushed through it, the energy rippling over his skin. The beam bent around him and widened, lashing harmlessly into the upper air. He reached the front line of ships and drove his fist through the nearest hull. Metal tore. Atmosphere vented. Aliens with grey skin and sharp armor screamed as they were flung out into open sky. Nolan grabbed one by the throat and threw him into a second ship, then ripped the first craft in half like it was made of paper. "Okay," Tony said softly, watching. "That's... wow." "Remind me we are on the same side," Rhodey muttered. Civilians down below stared up, phones in hand, as streaks of light and fire crossed the upper sky. To them, it looked like a war among gods. Nolan didn't care about how it looked. He cared about making sure nothing reached the ground. He moved from ship to ship, a blue and red projectile with fists. He slammed into engines, tore weapons off mounts, smashed cockpits. Each strike was measured to destroy the ship quickly. He didn't bother with boarding. There was no negotiation here. These were invaders. He treated them like he always had. As he crushed the spine of a third craft, something stabbed into his side. He hissed and turned. An elite soldier floated there in space, armor darker than the others, carrying a long spear that glowed with crackling energy. The spear tip smoked where it had cut his skin. shallow but real. The soldier's helmet opened, revealing a pale face with sharp eyes. "You are an interesting one," the alien said. "The Titan will want to know how you bleed." Nolan narrowed his eyes. "He'll have to ask your ghost." He lunged. The elite fought differently than the others. He used short-range teleportation, blinking from one point to another, making Nolan's punches hit empty air. He stabbed with the spear, each strike timed for Nolan's joints, his eyes, his throat. The weapon bit and burned. Nolan's skin smoked at the edges of the cuts. From a distance, Tony watched their clash on his HUD. "That guy can keep up with him," he said. "That's not great." "Then we even the odds," Thor said. He hurled his hammer. Mjolnir streaked through space, trailing lightning. The elite soldier blinked aside in time. The hammer grazed his shoulder and sent him spinning, but he righted himself quickly. Strange opened a portal under one damaged ship, sending it crashing safely into the ocean instead of the city. Hulk roared from the Quinjet Bay, leaping into the sky, grabbing onto a passing craft, and ripping it apart with raw fury. Down below, one small street tried to stay normal. A shawarma stand owner wrapped sandwiches, eyes flicking up every few seconds as the sky flashed. He had seen aliens before. He had seen heroes. He had never seen anything like the man who fell earlier, but business was business. Nolan landed in front of the stand for all of half a second. He looked at the glowing spit of meat, the stacks of flatbread. For a beat, the war noise faded. "Can I get—" he began. Another ship exploded overhead. The shockwave shook the sign. The owner ducked. A chunk of hot metal slammed into the pavement nearby. Nolan sighed. "Later," he said, and shot back into the air. The owner stared after him. "These superheroes," he muttered, "always in a rush." Back above the clouds, Nolan drove the elite into a tumbling roll, then kicked him toward Strange's portal. Strange twisted his hands. Space bent. The elite blinked to dodge and slammed into the edge of the hole instead, the spear scraping a shower of sparks off the magical boundary. "I can't hold him," Strange called. "His weapon is interfering." "On it," Tony said. He boosted in, fired a focus beam at the spear. The alien raised it to block. The beam struck the shaft, sending a jolt through the weapon. For a moment, the teleportation field around it flickered. Nolan seized the opening. He grabbed the elite by the throat and squeezed. "Tell your Titan," he said, "that Earth is taken." He slammed the alien into the broken hull of his own ship. The metal crumpled. When Nolan let go, the elite hung limp, helmet cracked, eyes closed. Tony grabbed the spear with a remote arm and pulled it into a containment field. "Friday, tag this, full analysis. I want to know what it's made of and how fast we can copy it." "Already on it, boss," she said. The remaining ships tried to flee. Thor and Hulk were not in the mood to let them. Hulk leaped from one to another, smashing engines, roaring. Thor called down a storm even this high up, lightning lashing across hulls. One craft managed to turn for space, engines blazing. Strange flicked his hand. A portal opened in front of it, redirecting its escape path. The ship vanished and reappeared over the desert, far from any city. It streaked away, damaged but not destroyed. "It's getting out," Cap said on the comm. "Let it," Fury's voice replied from the compound. "Let them tell whoever sent them that Earth bites back." Nolan floated there for a second, blood slowly sealing in the vacuum. He watched the escaping dot. They would come back. Next time, they would be ready for him. He clenched his fists. The news that night was a mess. Some channels showed the Avengers standing in front of the cameras, giving statements about another attempted invasion. Others zoomed in on shaky phone footage of a caped figure ripping ships apart above the clouds. People argued in bright studios. Omni-man, one commentator said, using the name Peter had posted online without thinking, single-handedly destroyed 3 of those ships. Eyewitnesses say he absorbed a direct hit from an energy beam that could have leveled a city block. Yes, there was damage, but imagine what would have happened without him. Imagine what would happen if he turned those fists on us, another replied. We have brought in an alien superweapon and handed him a keycard to the planet. He fought with the Avengers, the first said. He saved lives. He also killed, the other said. I've seen the footage. He snapped necks. He threw bodies into engines. Our heroes don't do that. They take prisoners when they can. Those were invaders, not bank robbers. And who decides where he draws that line? In a quiet war room, the Avengers had a conversation that sounded different, but not by much. Cap stood by the table, shield leaning against it. Tony paced. Banner sat with ice on his head. Thor drank water, looking thoughtful instead of merry. He was effective, Cap said. We can't argue that. He was lethal, Tony said. Very lethal. They were soldiers, Thor said. They came to test our defenses. They would not have shown mercy if they reached the ground. I'm not saying they deserve sympathy, Tony said. I'm saying the way he fights is not the way we fight. There's a difference. We can talk to him, Cap said. We can set rules. Steve, he's not a recruit, Tony said. He's a guy who spent decades breaking planets. People can change. Can they? Tony asked, thinking of his own past. Banner held up a hand. Whether he can change or not, one thing is clear, he said. He's now part of the equation. Thanos, or whoever sent those ships, knows he's here. They're going to factor him into their plans. And if his old empire finds him, Thor began. We get a bigger war, Tony finished. Nolan stood at the window, looking out. He could hear some of the conversation through the half-open door. He didn't need super hearing to guess the rest. On the glass, he saw his reflection. The cape, the symbol, the lines, the faint marks on his skin from the alien spear. He had fought like he always had. He had ended threats fast. He had not tried to take prisoners. He had not thought of what the cameras saw. On his Earth, that had made him a monster. Here, it made him a question mark. Peter walked up beside him, a plate in hand. The mask was off. He looked tired and a little starstruck still. Hey, Peter said. Brought you something. Nolan glanced down. It was a sandwich. Simple. Thick bread, meat, cheese, lettuce. Nothing fancy. I thought you didn't have time to eat earlier, Peter said. You kind of bolted from the shawarma stand. So, here, post-battle carbs. Nolan stared at the sandwich. He took it slowly. Thank you, he said. Peter shrugged. It's what we do. Feed the traumatized super people. Nolan almost smiled. He lifted the sandwich toward his mouth. The compound alarm pulsed again. Not as loud as before. More of a chime than a siren. Attention, Friday said. All core personnel to the main briefing room. External agencies are requesting a debrief. Director Fury wants everyone present. Peter winced. Sorry, he said. He really likes debriefs. Nolan looked at the sandwich. He lowered it. Of course he does, Nolan said. He set it gently on the table and followed Peter toward the door. Behind them, the sandwich sat alone, untouched. Outside, the stars seemed a little closer. The news showed him killing again and again. Different channels used different words, but they all played the same clip. A blue and red shape tearing through dark ships above the clouds. A fist punching through metal. An alien body thrown into an engine. A caped figure taking a beam to the chest and not falling. Some screens framed him as a savior. Others framed him as a threat. Steve Rogers watched from the back of the briefing room. The sound was off, but he had seen enough wars to read fear on people's faces. Anchors, guests, crowd shots. Everyone had that same tightness around the mouth. They were glad to be alive. They were scared of the price. Tony muted the wall of screens with a gesture. The room felt too quiet after that. "We can't keep this contained," he said. "He's trending in 12 languages. And before you ask, yes, Omni-Man is the name we're stuck with. Thanks, Spider-Man." Static crackled in Steve's earpiece as Peter blurted, "I didn't think it would stick. It was just a label in the file." "It's a good name," Thor said. "It suits him." Steve looked around the table. Tony, Thor, Natasha, Bruce, Strange, Rhodey. Vision's empty spot in memory. Fury at the far end, hands on the table like it was a battlefield map. "This isn't just about a name," Steve said. "It's about what people see when they look at him." "Some see a hero," Thor said. "He stopped those ships from reaching the ground." "They also see a man who kills easily," Natasha added. "No hesitation. No attempt to take prisoners. That scares people." Fury tapped a button. A new set of images appeared. Not ships now, streets. The crater from the first monster fight. Cars piled, shop fronts shattered. Rescue crews pulling civilians out of rubble. "The president called me twice today," Fury said. "The UN wants a meeting. They want to know if we've brought a loaded gun into their living room." Tony snorted. "We're not the ones who pulled him out of space." "No," Fury said, "but we're the ones keeping him here." Bruce rubbed his eyes. "Can we really send him away? We don't even know how he got through the tear." Strange nodded. "The multiversal fracture is not a door we opened. It is more like a crack in a window someone threw a rock through. Him." He gestured in the air. A glowing outline of Earth appeared, with a wound in space above it, like a red scar. "That fracture is linked to his passage," Strange said. "It responds to his energy. If we push him away, it will not simply close. It may break wider." "So we're stuck with him," Tony said. "Great." Steve looked at the glowing scar. Then he looked at the empty doorway, where he knew Nolan was out in the compound somewhere, probably staring at a wall. "We're not stuck with him," Steve said. "We're working with him. Or we're not. That's the choice." Fury gave him a flat look. "You want to talk about choice, Rogers? He chose to be a conqueror for most of his life. And he chose to leave," Steve said. "I'm not saying we hand him a medal. I'm saying we don't throw away the one person who has actually stood against his empire before." Tony shot back. "He also led them to his last Earth by doing his job. We don't know if he led them here by coming through that crack." Strange's eyes narrowed. "I don't think this was a planned move by Viltrum. It feels messy, accidental. But once they sense the tear, they'll come," Bruce finished. The door hummed. A hologram flickered to life near the table. The image resolved into a tall man with dark skin and royal bearing, wearing a black suit accented with sleek vibranium lines. "T'Challa," Steve said, relieved. "Good to see you." "Likewise, my friend," the King of Wakanda said, "though I wish the news were better." His gaze slid over the floating images of Nolan punching ships apart. "We have been tracking this omni-man as well," T'Challa said. "Wakanda's sensors recorded his energy levels. They match no known race. His presence has already increased global tension." "Welcome to the Club of Worry," Tony said. "Pull up a chair, or a projection of one." A hard light chair formed under T'Challa's holographic shape. He did not sit. "I did not come to join your circle," he said. "I came to tell you something you already know, but do not wish to say aloud." Fury raised a brow. "Which is?" "You must plan to kill him," T'Challa said. The room went still. Steve's jaw tightened. "We're not planning to kill someone who is helping us." "You are planning to defend the world," T'Challa said. "That includes plans you hope you never use. In Wakanda, we have a phrase. Hope for peace. Sharpen your spear." Thor frowned. "He fought with us against the invaders. He risked his own life." "He is a warrior," T'Challa said. "He acts as he knows. That does not make him safe." Bruce shifted. "Do you have something already in mind? A spear for him?" T'Challa nodded. "Vibranium can absorb and redirect great force. Combined with mystic bindings from your sorcerer and Stark's technology, we might build a cage strong enough to slow him. Nothing will stop him completely. But if he falls into Viltrum hands or turns against us, we must have choices." Tony looked at Strange. "Magic cuffs to go with the vibranium box." "It is possible," Strange said, "but I must warn you. He will feel the magic if we place it on him without consent. That will break trust." "I'm not saying you slap a collar on him today," T'Challa said. "I am saying you prepare one." Steve stared at the table. He did not like this. It scraped against everything in him. But he had also seen what happened when you refused to plan for the worst. "We talk to him," Steve said at last. "We tell him we're working on safety measures. We don't pretend we're not afraid of him. He deserves honesty." Fury muttered, "You really think telling a living nuke we're designing a bomb suit for him is a smart move?" "Yes," Steve said, "because if we hide it and he finds out later, we lose him for sure." Tony sighed. "He's right. Transparency hurts now. Secrets hurt later." Strange looked at the red scar in his projection again. "He is not the only one watching," Strange said. "The spell I placed on the fracture tells me it has been touched, probed. Something on the other side has brushed against it, like fingers on glass." "Thanos?" Bruce asked. "Perhaps," Strange said. "Or the Viltrumites. Or something else we have not met yet." Steve folded his arms. "Then we need Omni-Man's help, and we need that spear sharpened." He looked at T'Challa's calm face. "Work with Tony and Strange," Steve said. "Build your contingency, but we do this the right way." T'Challa inclined his head. "Wakanda will assist. We will also keep our own people safe if your friend fails." He cut the connection. The projection blinked out. For a moment, Steve wished the world were as simple as it had been the first time he picked up a shield. It wasn't, but he still had to choose which way to face. Nolan stood alone in a small balcony garden on the upper floor of the compound. The plants here were neatly arranged in boxes. Small trees, flowers. Tony had built it as a place for the team to breathe easy air between missions. The night sky above the compound was clear, full of stars. On his Earth, he had floated above continents like this many times. Back then, he had seen targets, lines of attack, flight paths. Now, he saw a blue world he did not know yet, with strange defenders and stranger threats. He thought of Viltrum. He thought of Mark. He thought of how easy it had felt to tear those alien ships apart. Old instincts had flowed through his muscles, smooth as ever. End the threat. Don't waste time. Don't worry about bodies. Then he remembered the way Spider-Man had flinched when he saw a corpse hit the ground. He remembered the look on Steve's face when he had talked about his son. "You've spent decades serving your empire," Steve had said. "You can spend some time learning ours." Nolan didn't know if he could. Viltrum had drilled deep. Honor meant strength. Mercy was weakness. Love for people weaker than you was. Complicated. He heard a soft mechanical whir behind him. A small robot hovered in the doorway. It was all sharp angles and smooth metal, floating on gentle jets. Its eyes glowed green. "Nolan Grayson," it said in a polite, slightly cold voice. "You have an incoming communication request." "From who?" Nolan asked without turning. "From Latveria," the robot said. "From Victor von Doom." Nolan frowned. "Who is that?" "A world leader," the robot said, "and a supervillain, depending on which file you open." "Of course," Nolan thought. "Put him through," he said. The robot projected a life-size hologram onto the balcony. A tall figure in green robes and a metal mask appeared, hands clasped behind his back. The image flickered slightly in the night air. "Omni-man," Doom said. His voice echoed, smooth and rich. "Or do you prefer Nolan?" Nolan turned to face him. "You are Doom." "Yes," Doom said. "Ruler of Latveria, master of science and sorcery, defender of my people, and a man who knows what it is to be feared." He took a slow step closer. The hologram stopped at the balcony's edge, as if respecting the space. "I have watched your arrival," Doom went on. "I have studied your fights. You are impressive." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "You hack into the compound systems often?" "This is not a hack," Doom said. "Stark knows I am here. He is listening. Hello, Stark." Somewhere in the building, Tony swore. Doom ignored that. "I did not come to steal," he said. "I came to offer perspective." "I have plenty of my own," Nolan said. "Do you?" Doom asked. "You were raised by an empire that taught you to break worlds. You fled that empire in shame. Now you serve a group of heroes who do not understand you and will never fully trust you." Nolan said nothing, but his jaw tightened. Doom's eyes glowed a little brighter behind the mask. They will smile at you. They will eat with you. But in their hearts, they are afraid. Rightly so. You are a blade they hold by the edge. "You think I don't know that?" Nolan said. "I think you are tired," Doom said. "And you deserve a home where you are not a guest with a bomb under his chair." He spread one metal hand, showing a hologram of a beautiful valley, green and rich, dotted with small towns and a castle on a hill. "Latveria is mine," Doom said. "I keep it safe. I do what is needed. I do not answer to the weak. I do not apologize for strength. You and I have that in common." Nolan looked at the image. "You want me to join you? To help you rule this place?" "I want you to have a place," Doom said. "Not a cell, not a lab. A land where your power is respected and used well. Where you can stand openly, not as a pet of the Avengers, but as an equal partner to someone who understands power." He let the image fade. "In exchange," Doom said, "I ask for your strength when my nation is threatened. When the world tries to chain us, when off-world invaders come, I do not ask you to conquer, I ask you to defend." "And when you decide defense means attacking first?" Nolan asked. Doom's eyes flashed. "Then we will discuss, as equals." It was a good offer. Nolan saw that at once. He had lived long enough to hear the shape of a trap. This was one, but it was also true. Doom really would make him a partner. Doom really would respect his strength. The Avengers respected it too, but they also feared their own reactions if he crossed their lines. They were house-building dogs trying to handle a wild wolf. Doom was a wolf offering another wolf a den. "What happens when my old empire comes?" Nolan asked. "Then we will stand at the walls of Latveria together," Doom said, "and show them what this universe does with uninvited guests." Nolan almost believed him. Almost. He looked back out at the stars. "I don't want another throne," he said. "I had a world where I was the strongest thing in the sky. I broke it. I don't want to do that again." Doom watched him for a long moment. "You think hiding among heroes will prevent that?" Doom asked. "They are good at making speeches, Omni-Man. They are less skilled at doing what must be done." "They do more than speeches," Nolan said quietly. "You saw that in the sky today." "Yes," Doom said. "They fought well. They are still blind to the true game." He folded his arms. "The offer stands," Doom said. "You are not a dog to be leashed. You are a force. If you ever decide you want a home that accepts that, Latveria's skies will be open to you." The hologram flickered. "Until then," Doom said, "remember this. Men like us are never truly forgiven by the weak. We are tolerated and watched." The image vanished. Nolan was alone again. He did not know if Doom was right. He did not want him to be. But he had lived long enough to know that people did watch and fear and plan. He took a deep breath and went back inside. The kitchen smelled like coffee and grilled onions. Peter sat on the counter, feet swinging, still in his hoodie and jeans. His suit dried in a corner. He watched Nolan study the fridge like it was an alien artifact. "It's just food," Peter said, "not a Viltrumite bomb." "I know what a fridge is," Nolan said. He pulled out ground beef, cheese slices, and a bag of buns, copying something he had seen on TV earlier. He moved with the easy calm of someone used to doing big things, now focusing on something small. Peter flipped on the stove for him. "You cook?" Peter asked. "Sometimes," Nolan said. "My wife preferred to, but I could." "Nice," Peter said. "You're already beating half the dads I know." Nolan formed patties with quick, strong hands. He put them on the pan. The sizzle smelled good. For a moment, the war outside these walls felt distant. "You know they're scared, right?" Peter asked quietly. Nolan didn't look up. "Who?" "Everyone," Peter said. "The team, the world. They see what you can do. They don't know where to put that." "I know," Nolan said. "I have seen that look before." He flipped the burgers. Peter hesitated. "I'm not saying they're right. I'm just letting you know." "I appreciate honesty," Nolan said. Peter hopped down from the counter, got plates, set them on the island. "For what it's worth," he said, "you scare me too. But you also saved a lot of people. That counts." Nolan made a small sound that might have been a laugh. They built the burgers together. Bun, patty, cheese, lettuce, tomato. Peter added too much ketchup. Nolan kept his simple. He picked up his burger. It was big and messy. It smelled like late nights after patrols. He opened his mouth to take a bite. The alarm chimed. Not a blaring siren this time. A warble. Stranger's voice came over the speakers. "Energy spike at the fracture," he said. "I need the core team in the sanctum now. We may be getting a visitor." Peter groaned. "You've got to be kidding me." Nolan stared at the burger. He set it down with a sigh. "Go," he said to Peter. "You're not coming?" Peter asked. "I'll be right behind you," Nolan said. Peter swung out the window. Nolan looked at the burger one more time. "It seems the universe does not want me to eat," he muttered. Then he followed. Thanos sat in his throne, fingers tracing lines in the air. The fragments of recorded battle floated around him. Tiny projections of Nolan and the elite soldier fighting. Readouts of energy, notes from his followers. "He fights like someone who has done this often," Thanos mused. "No wasted motion, no mercy. Yet he breaks from his own kind." Ebony Maw bowed low. Shall we attempt to capture him, my lord? He could be a weapon against the Avengers. Thanos shook his head. You do not cage a storm more. You stand in the right place when it breaks. He turned one projection with a twist of his hand. It showed Nolan deflecting the energy beam aimed at the city. He protects this world, Thanos said, but he does not love it yet. He carries guilt. That can be used, or it can harden into a shield. We will watch, not push. And if his empire comes, Moore asked. Thanos' eyes gleamed. Then we will see which side he chooses. That will tell us what he truly is now. He waved a hand. The projections faded. Prepare contingency paths, Thanos said. Adjust plans. There is a new piece on the board, but the game is still the same. Nolan stood in the Sanctum Sanctorum, surrounded by relics and glowing lines only Strange could see. The fracture appeared in the air as a ghost image, a thin, jagged line hanging above a map of Earth. Strange's spell traced its edges, showing where it tugged at reality. It is not widening, Strange said, but it is not healing either. Something keeps touching it and pulling back. Like someone poking a saw, Tony said. Charming image, Strange said dryly. Nolan watched the red line. It reminded him of a cut that hadn't closed. He had many of those. If Viltrum learns to follow this path, Nolan began. They will, Strange said softly. Your people are long-lived, patient. They will look for you, and for new worlds. Steve looked at Nolan. If they come, we'll be ready. You're not ready, Nolan said. You have strong fighters, magic, technology. But Viltrumites are built to kill worlds. They train for centuries. We've faced gods, Steve said. We've faced alien armies, killer robots, monsters. We're not going to stand down now, and we're not alone anymore. We have you. Nolan looked away. That's what I'm afraid of. Strange studied him. You fear your own strength more than theirs. I know what I can do, Nolan said. I know what they can push me to do. Steve walked closer. Then don't let them. It's not that simple, Nolan said. You think I just choose to be better, and it all stops. I thought I knew what I was. Then I looked down and saw my son's face under my hands. His voice went flat. I can't promise you I'll never lose control, he said. I can only tell you what I want, and that I am trying. That's all any of us can, Steve said. Nolan didn't answer. Later, when the tests were done and the mystical readings taken, he went back to his room. The walls felt closer than before. He sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He was tired of being a weapon in someone else's story. Viltrum's, now Earth's, Doom's offers, Thanos' unseen eyes. He didn't know what he wanted. A quiet day, a meal finished, a chance to walk a street without looking for weak spots and flight paths. He thought of Debbie. She had loved crowded markets, little shops, regular people. She had dragged him down from the sky and made him buy fruit with her. He missed that. Maybe, he thought, he needed to see how people lived here, without capes and shields between them and the world. He stood up. They met in the briefing room again. Steve, Tony, Thor, Natasha, Bruce, Strange, Fury, the usual circle. Nolan stood on the other side of the table this time. I want to leave, he said. Tony lifted a brow. Define leave, because if it's fly off to another universe and tear a hole in space again, I'm going to need at least a week's notice. I want to leave this base, Nolan said. Not your world. Steve exchanged a quick look with Natasha. Why? Because I am not learning anything about this planet from these walls, Nolan said. I know your strongest fighters, your best toys, but I don't know your people. I want to see how they live, how they think. If I'm going to protect this world, I need to see more than briefing rooms and battlefields. That's actually reasonable, Bruce said. Fury gave him a narrow look. You want to walk around among civilians? You, the guy on every channel. I can keep my feet on the ground, Nolan said dryly. I did it for years. I can wear normal clothes. Use a normal name. I've done that before. And how did that work out last time? Tony muttered. Nolan looked him in the eye. I failed my family, he said. I don't plan to do that again. Not with this world. Steve nodded slowly. You want to live as Nolan for a while? Yes, Nolan said. I will come when you call, when there is a threat. But when there is not, I want to be among the people I'm supposed to be fighting for, not locked up like a bomb that might go off. Fury started to speak. Steve held up a hand. We can watch him without putting a collar on him, Steve said. Stark can put trackers in his phone. Strange can mark him with magic. T'Challa can monitor from Wakanda. We don't need him in a bunker. Tony sighed. You just like letting walking problems go on field trips. I like trusting people until they give me a reason not to, Steve said. Strange nodded. From a mystical standpoint, his presence near the fracture is useful. But the fracture responds to the world, not the compound. It will not matter where he sleeps. My spells can find him. Fury rubbed his face. Fine. You get an apartment, a cover identity. We keep you on a tight grid. You don't go near sensitive sites without warning. You don't start fights. You don't join any supervillain fan clubs. Doom already invited him to one, Tony said, in case anyone missed that. I declined, Nolan said. Good, Fury said, because if you accept, we shoot first. Ask questions never. Nolan gave a short nod. I understand. Steve stepped forward and held out his hand. We'll help you find a place, he said. Start small. Learn. Nolan looked at the hand. He took it. Thank you, he said. As they shook, Strange's gaze drifted to the projection of the fracture. In his mind, he could already feel the next tug on that red scar. Stronger this time, more focused. He knew something was coming. And now their strongest new ally wanted to step into a crowd of people with no walls between them and him. Strange hoped the universe would give them a little time. It didn't. Queens smelled like hot pavement, cheap food, and too many lives stacked on top of each other. Nolan stepped off the bus and tightened his grip on the small duffel bag in his hand. The strap dug into his fingers more from habit than weight. The bag held clothes, fake ID papers, and a phone Tony had given him. The phone had more trackers and fail-safes than most space probes. He wore jeans, a simple shirt, and a worn brown jacket. No cape, no symbol. His hair was combed back. He looked like a middle-aged man who had seen a lot of hard days. People brushed past him. Kids on bikes, a woman with groceries, a delivery guy with a stack of boxes. No one knew who he was. That felt strange and good. He walked down the street, reading shop signs, laundry, pharmacy, deli, pawn shop, a barber with pictures of famous, haircuts in the window. He passed a bulletin board with flyers, lost pet, guitar lessons, community meeting about rising rents. On his Earth, he had flown over places like this so often he had stopped seeing them. Now, he forced himself to see. His rented apartment was on the 3rd floor of a brick building that had seen better paint. The landlord was a tired man in his 50s who barely looked up from the paperwork. Rent's due first of the month, the landlord said. Water's fine most days. Heat's spotty in the winter. You want repairs? You call. I might come. Or not. Name? Nolan Grayson, Nolan said, using the fake ID. It was still his real name. That helped. "Okay, Mr. Grayson," the landlord said. "No loud parties, no weird pets." "I don't have any pets," Nolan said. "Good," the man said. "You look like a cat person. Cats claw the walls." He handed over the keys. The apartment was small. One main room with a couch, a tiny kitchen in the corner, a bedroom barely big enough for the bed. The window looked out over a row of rooftops and a water tower. Nolan walked around, testing the floor with light steps. The boards creaked. He sat on the couch, which complained under his weight. He lowered his presence so it wouldn't break. He listened. He heard a couple arguing softly down the hall, a kid laughing at a cartoon, a TV playing a game show, cars outside, a helicopter far away. Life. His phone buzzed. He took it out. A group chat with a name Tony had picked popped up. Universe Problem Child Support Group. Steve. "Let us know when you're settled." Tony. "Remember, the phone has GPS, magic GPS, and an I'm about to do something dumb alarm. Peter. I can bring you food if the stove freaks you out. I'm serious. I make a mean grilled cheese." Nolan stared at the messages. He typed, slowly. "I'm fine. The stove does not frighten me. Thank you." A second later, 3 dots popped up from Peter. "Peter. Cool. Just checking. Welcome to the neighborhood, Mr. Not at all terrifying." Nolan actually smiled. He put the phone away and decided to go for a walk. Peter Parker carried a paper bag full of groceries up the stairs and wondered if he should leave a welcome note. Aunt May had raised him right. New neighbor, you bake something. You say hi. You do not ignore a man who has clearly been through it and now lives in a small apartment with nothing but a duffel bag. He had no time to bake, so groceries would have to do. He walked down the hall and stopped at the door with the new name on it. N. Grayson. He raised his hand to knock and hesitated. What if Nolan wanted to be left alone? What if this felt like spying? What if he crushed the bag by accident and mayonnaise exploded everywhere? That would be a great first impression. "Hi, I'm Spider-Man. Here's some broken eggs." He knocked anyway. The door opened. Nolan looked down at him, surprised. "Peter," he said. Hi," Peter said, holding up the bag like a shield. "I brought you some basics. Bread, eggs, milk, cereal, coffee. You know, human starter pack." Nolan blinked. "You didn't need to do that." "I know," Peter said. "I wanted to." Nolan took the bag carefully. He looked at the items inside, then back at Peter. "Thank you," he said. "Do you want to come in?" "Sure," Peter said. Inside, the apartment looked even smaller with Nolan in it. The duffel sat in the corner. The bed was neatly made. The table was bare. Peter put the groceries on the counter and tried not to stare at the way Nolan moved. He held himself like someone trying to take up less space than he really did. "How does it feel?" Peter asked. "Being in a place like this instead of a base full of crazy tech?" "Less noisy," Nolan said. "More real." Peter nodded. "Yeah, this is where people live. Not in big towers, mostly." Nolan looked out the window at the water tower. "I spent years living in houses like this on my Earth," he said quietly. "And still, I did not see them. Not really." "Well," Peter said, "you've got time now. Rent's a great teacher. You miss a payment, it yells real loud." Nolan made a small sound that might have been a laugh. "If you need anything," Peter said, heading for the door. "I'm down the block. Building with the broken buzzer. You can't miss it. Just, please knock like a normal person. Don't fly through my window." "I'll try," Nolan said. Peter left feeling oddly lighter. Having Omni-Man as a neighbor was terrifying. but also maybe good. At least he'd be close if something went wrong. The diner was 3 blocks away, tucked between a laundromat and a discount electronics store. Its sign flickered. Its windows were a little greasy. Inside, the air smelled like coffee, frying oil, and syrup. The kind of place where time moves slower. Nolan pushed the door open. A bell rang. A tired waitress looked up from behind the counter. "Sit anywhere," she said. He chose a booth by the window. The menu was a laminated list of simple things: pancakes, burgers, eggs, sandwiches, coffee. Pie that was probably older than some of the customers. He ordered a big breakfast plate: eggs, bacon, hash browns, pancakes. The waitress wrote it down without much interest and shuffled away. He sat and watched the street. Cars passed. A kid chased a ball. A couple argued about a bill. A dog sniffed a lamppost like it held secrets. He felt almost normal. The food arrived. It looked better than the cafeteria tray. Real grease. Imperfect pancakes. The eggs were a little burnt at the edges. He picked up his fork. He took a bite. He chewed. Nothing exploded. Nobody called him. No alarm went off. He relaxed a little. He took another bite, and another. The plate started to empty. His stomach warmed. His shoulders loosened. For the first time since he landed in this universe, Nolan felt like a person sitting down to eat, not a weapon waiting for orders. Then the air shuddered. It started as a low hum in his bones. He looked up. The lights flickered. The coffee in his cup rippled. Outside, the sky over the street bent. In the sanctum, Strange's eyes snapped open. The fracture glowed in his mind, brighter than before. It wasn't a soft touch now. It was a shove. "Wong," he called. "It's happening." Wong rushed in, staff in hand. "Where?" "Queens," Strange said. "Near the mark I placed on Nolan's aura." He traced a circle in the air. This time, the spark shower was harsh and fast. The portal opened onto a Queen Street, and Strange saw the sky tearing itself open. "We're too late to stop it," he said. "We can only respond." He sent a blast of magic out through the sanctum's links. "Avengers," he said, "to Queens, now." The tear cut straight through the blue. It wasn't big, not like the first fracture above Manhattan. It was tighter, more focused, like a knife wound. Red-white light spilled through onto the street below. People stopped. A woman pushing a stroller looked up and gasped. A man on a bike braked so hard he almost flipped over. In the diner, Nolan dropped his fork and stood. The plate clattered. He stepped outside. The light sharpened. A shape burst through it. The first thing he saw was the cape. It was white, not red. It flared behind a tall figure in silver and black armor, marked with the symbol of Viltrum. The face under the helmet was pale, hard, with cold eyes. Behind him came 3 more shapes. Smaller drones, metal spheres with blades and beams. They spread out at once, scanning, weapons arming. The lead Viltrumite hovered above the street, fists on his hips. "Omni-man," he called. His voice boomed across the block. "You are hard to find when you run between worlds." Nolan's stomach dropped. He rose off the ground without thinking, capeless, in his plain clothes. The jacket flapped around him. Civilians stared. Phones came out. "Conquest," Nolan said. "We can pick a canonical Viltrumite enforcer like Conquest. He is extremely dangerous." Conquest smiled, showing teeth. "You look older," he said. "Good. The years have not softened you, I hope." "You shouldn't be here," Nolan said. "Leave this world." Conquest chuckled. "You know that is not how this works. The Empire sensed your trail. Your little tear in reality was very loud. They sent me to check if our wayward son still has a spine. He looked down at the civilians, then back at Nolan. "And to see if this place is worth taking," he added. Nolan's hands curled into fists. Children stared up at them. A boy pointed. "Mom, look, it's that guy from TV." The mother pulled him back, fear in her eyes. "No," Nolan said. "You're not touching this world." Conquest's eyes gleamed. "Then show me you're still Viltrumite." He moved. One moment, he was hanging in the air. The next, he was in front of Nolan, fist already driving forward. Nolan barely got his arms up in time. The punch hit like a speeding train. It sent him crashing backward through the diner window. Glass exploded. The counter shattered. People screamed and ducked. Conquest floated into the diner after him, boots crushing broken plates. "Disappointing," he said. "You used to take that better." Nolan spat blood onto the floor. He stood, brushing glass off his shoulders. "I was holding back," he said. He drove his fist upward into Conquest's jaw. The hit lifted the enforcer and blew him through the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Nolan shot after him, tearing into the open air. They collided above the street, shockwaves rippling out. Windows cracked, car alarms wailed. Down below, a red and blue blur swung around the corner. Spider-Man landed on the side of a building, eyes wide. "Oh no," he said. "Oh no, that's another one." He hit his comm. "Avengers, we've got a Viltrumite fighting Queens. I repeat, Omni-Man is fighting his evil space cousin in my neighborhood." "On our way," Cap said. "Get people clear." "Working on it," Peter said. He fired webs down, grabbing two people frozen in fear and yanking them out of the way as a chunk of concrete slammed into the sidewalk where they'd been. "Everybody run," he shouted. "Like now." Luke Cage sprinted from a nearby street, having seen the tear from his own patrol. His skin glowed with faint power as debris bounced off him. "Kid, go high," Luke called. "I'll keep people under cover." "Deal," Peter yelled. He swung up toward the fight. From the ground, the battle looked like two meteors trying to kill each other. Nolan smashed Conquest into a rooftop. The roof gave way. They slammed through floors, smashing through apartments, then burst out the other side of the building into open sky again. Conquest laughed, blood on his teeth. "There you are," he said. "I was afraid the guilt made you soft." "These people are under my protection," Nolan said. "You touch them, you go through me." "You sound like one of them," Conquest sneered. "Soft, attached. That's why we sent you away. You liked your pets." He spun, elbow catching Nolan across the face, then grabbed his leg and hurled him toward the water tower. Nolan slammed into the tank. Steel buckled. Water sprayed out in a rush, flooding the rooftop. The tower toppled toward the street. Nolan shot out of the wreckage and caught it before it hit a group of people. The weight barely meant anything to him. He set it down sideways, water splashing. In that moment of distraction, one of the drones fired. A beam lanced toward the crowd. Spider-Man's spider sense screamed. He swung as fast as he could, but he was still too far. Nolan dropped the tower and moved. He flashed in front of the beam, arms crossed. The energy slammed into him. It burned. He grunted, feet gouging lines in the pavement, but the beam stopped there. When it faded, kids were still standing behind him, eyes huge. He turned his head slightly. "Run," he said. They ran. Up above, Conquest watched. "You take hits for them now," he said. "Pitiful." "They're under my protection," Nolan repeated. Conquest rolled his shoulders. "Then they will die screaming when your protection fails," he said, "unless you remember what you are." He charged. They flew higher, fists blurring. Each impact shook the air, birds scattered. A passing news helicopter banked hard to avoid the shockwaves. Tony streaked in from above, repulsors glowing. Thor arrived with thunder. A portal opened, and Strange stepped out onto a rooftop, cloak flaring. "Status?" Tony asked, flanking Spider-Man. "That," Peter said, pointing up, "is Omni-Man's meaner relative. He hits harder. Also, he smiles while he does it. I hate him." "Understood," Tony said. "Thor, take the drones. Strange, keep the big punches off the ground. I'll help Nolan." Strange spread his hands. Glowing circles appeared in the air between the fighters and the city. When Conquest punched Nolan and sent him flying, Nolan vanished into one portal and came out of another, redirected toward the river instead of the street. Thor hurled his hammer. Lightning arced and struck one drone. It exploded in a ball of fire. Another dove at him, blades whirring, and he knocked it aside with Mjolnir. "Hulk coming," Banner's voice roared over the comm. A green shape soared into view, landing on a building with a roar. "Hulk hate floaty spaceman," he bellowed. He leaped toward Conquest and grabbed him mid-air. Conquest actually grunted as Hulk's arms locked around him. The Viltrumite slammed elbows into Hulk's head. Hulk head-butted him. The two of them tumbled, smashing into another building. Nolan followed, teeth clenched. "Keep him away from the ground," he shouted. Conquest twisted free of Hulk's grip, grabbed Green Fists, and flung him downward. Hulk hit the street, making a crater but not hurting anyone else thanks to Strange's quick portal work. Conquest dodged another of Thor's lightning bolts, then turned on Nolan again. "Look at you," Conquest said, voice thick with excitement. "Fighting for them, standing with these costume toys. You were the best of us. Now you're a nursemaid." Nolan swung, knuckles cracking. "Shut up." Conquest took the punch, laughed, and hit him back harder. Nolan's vision flashed white. He tasted blood. Down below, Spider-Man swung between falling chunks of concrete, webbing them to walls. Luke Cage shielded people with his body, bullets of debris bouncing off his unbreakable skin. "Everyone inside," Luke shouted. "Basements now." Daredevil sprang from shadow to shadow, guiding people with calm, firm shouts. "This way, follow my voice." The street level. Heroes couldn't touch the two titans above them, but they could make sure fewer people died. Cap landed on the sidewalk, shield already up, barking orders to police and EMTs. "Get a perimeter, keep people back, stay behind cover." He looked up at the sky, his heart hammered. He had seen strong foes before. He had never seen two men hit each other hard enough to crack buildings just from the air pressure. "Can they win?" an officer asked, staring upward. "They have to," Cap said, "but we'll make sure people live no matter what." Nolan's ribs hurt. Viltrumite bones were hard to break, but Conquest's punches made them creak. The Enforcer fought like a storm. No hesitation. Every blow meant to end a life. They slammed together again over the East River. Conquest grabbed Nolan's head and pushed him under, flying down with him. The water exploded around them as they plunged. Under the surface, sound was a roar. Conquest held Nolan there, pressing down, trying to drown him in weight and pressure. "We don't need you alive," Conquest said, words bubbling. "We just need proof you're here and weak. They'll come either way." Nolan planted his feet on the riverbed and pushed off. They burst back into the air, water streaming off them. Nolan drove his forehead into Conquest's nose. Blood sprayed. "Still weak?" Nolan asked. Conquest grinned through the blood. "Better." He fainted, then slashed a chop into Nolan's neck. Pain lanced down Nolan's spine. His limbs went numb for a second. Conquest used that blink to spin and kick him in the chest. Nolan flew backward, smashing into a bridge support. Concrete cracked. Cars screeched to a halt. People screamed. He blinked the numbness away. He saw a truck teetering on the edge, wheels spinning. He pushed the pain down and flew. He caught the truck before it tipped, set it back on solid ground, and checked the driver with a quick glance. "Go," he said. The driver, shaking, floored it. Conquest rolled his eyes. "You waste time," he said, floating closer. "Every second you save one of them, you risk thousands more dying when you fail. You used to know better." Nolan thought of Mark under his fists, of Debbie screaming, of blood on his own hands. "I used to be a different man," he said. He shot forward, faster than before. Their fists met in the middle, sending a shockwave that Strange barely redirected into a portal. The redirected blast ripped a chunk out of an empty warehouse instead of a crowded street. Tony, flying nearby, flinched at his HUD readings. "We're not doing this forever," he said. "Strange, can you contain him?" "Maybe for a time," Strange said, "but not without cost." "Do you have a better idea?" Tony asked. Strange thought fast. "We cannot kill him easily, but we can push him back where he came from." He raised his hands. Magic circles formed, locking onto Conquest's energy. "I can open the fracture wider for a moment," Strange said. "Turn it into a door. If we force him through, it will slam behind him. With some luck, it will take longer for them to open it again from their side." "You're going to send him home?" Tony asked. "Better one Viltrumite there than here," Strange said. "For now." Cap's voice came over the comm. "Do it, but make sure Nolan isn't dragged with him." "Understood," Strange said. He focused. The tear above the street brightened. Red-white light spread. The air hummed louder. Everyone on the ground felt the hair on their arms rise. Conquest faltered for a heartbeat, sensing the pull. "What are they doing?" he snarled. "Trying to clean up my mess," Nolan said. He grabbed Conquest's arm and shoulder from behind, locking him in a hold. "Strange," Nolan shouted. "Now!" Strange pulled down with both hands. The fracture widened into a spinning ring of light and distortion right in front of the two Viltrumites. A strong wind slammed downward as both universes tried to equalize. Loose papers, trash, and smaller debris were sucked upward toward the glowing ring. Conquest dug his heels into the air, muscles straining. "You think you can send me back like garbage?" he roared. He twisted, breaking one of Nolan's grips, and drove his elbow into Nolan's side, trying to free himself. Nolan held on tighter. Pain burned in his ribs again. He thought of Queens below, of Peter's nervous smile, of Steve's steady eyes, of Debbie and Mark far away. "Stay," he growled into Conquest's ear. "Away. From them." He angled his flight, pushing both of them toward the ring. For a moment it worked. Conquest's body crossed the edge. The light warped around him. Half of him vanished into that other place. Then his hand shot out, grabbing Nolan's capeless jacket. His grip was iron. "If I go," Conquest snarled, "I take you with me." Nolan felt the pull on his clothes. He knew that if he went through, he might never come back, or he might drag the fracture wider, ripping this universe open. He looked down. Peter stood on a rooftop, staring up. Their eyes met for a split second. Peter shook his head hard, as if trying to say, "Don't." Nolan let go of his jacket. The fabric tore free in Conquest's hand. Nolan's body shot backward, away from the pull, bare-armed now. Conquest, off balance, slid further in. Strange slammed his hands together. The ring snapped shut. For a brief instant, Conquest's eye met Nolan's through the shrinking gap. Rage and promise burned there. Then he was gone. The tear sealed with a thunderclap, and a ripple that ran through the air and the ground and the bones of everyone watching. Nolan hovered there, chest heaving, bare arms covered in bruises and cuts. His shirt was torn. His jacket was gone. Silence fell over the street. Then someone clapped. It was one person at first, trembling, then another, then more. A thin, shaky cheer rose up from the survivors. Spider-Man sagged against a wall in relief. "Okay," he panted. "Okay, that was a thing." Luke wiped dust off his jacket. "Understatement of the year, kid." Cap walked into the open street, looking up at Nolan. "You okay?" he called. "I've been better," Nolan said. His voice was rough. "But I'm standing." Strange floated up beside him, studying the space where the tear had been. "It is different now," Strange murmured. "Sealed, but not gone. Like a door that's been slammed, not removed." "Can they open it again?" Nolan asked. "Eventually," Strange said. "But it will take them time and effort." Tony hovered near, scanning Nolan's injuries. "You need a med bay, or at least some ice and a very strong drink." Nolan shook his head. "Later." He looked down at Queens. Buildings were damaged. Windows were broken. Cars were wrecked. But most of the people were alive and moving. Heroes were helping them out of rubble, guiding them to safety. He had taken blows for them. He had torn his own jacket to stay. For a moment, he felt something like pride. Not the Viltrumite kind. Something smaller and more solid. Then he saw the phones. Dozens of people had filmed the fight. They had caught him slamming Conquest through buildings. They had caught him taking a beam for children. They had caught him choosing to stay when he could have left. He wondered what Doom would say about that. He wondered what Mark would think if he ever saw. The news that night was louder than before. Today, the mysterious omni-man engaged in a deadly battle with another alien super being in Queens, one anchor said, voice tight. The fight caused heavy damage, but thanks to the efforts of the Avengers and local heroes, there were surprisingly few deaths. On another channel, a clip looped, Nolan stepping in front of a beam to shield kids. "They call him a hero," a guest said, "but look at how he fights. Look at the power he wields. If he ever decides we're not worth protecting." "And if he hadn't been there," the host asked, "would any of those people be alive?" Online, someone had already cut together a video set to dramatic music titled Omni-Man versus Space Psycho, Full Fight. Comments argued back and forth in a river of text. In the Avengers compound, the debate sounded calmer, but the weight was the same. "Now we know," Tony said, leaning on the table. "Viltrumites can get here. They know he's alive. They know about us." "And we know they can be pushed back," Steve said. "We did it once." Strange shook his head. "We did not defeat him. We redirected him. He will tell his empire what he saw. They will plan." Fury's face was grim. "Then we buy time. We use Nolan's knowledge. We prepare." "And we don't forget," Natasha said, "that the only reason this started is because he came through that crack in the first place." Steve looked at her. "You think we should have turned him away?" "No," Natasha said. "I think we should never pretend he doesn't bring danger with him. He knows that. We should too." Tony glanced toward the window, where Nolan's silhouette stood against the night. "So what is he now?" Tony asked. "A friend, a warning, both." "Both," Steve said. Nolan stood on the same Queen Street, where his jacket had torn away hours earlier. The diner's window was boarded up now. The owner swept glass into a pile. People moved slowly, picking up pieces of their lives. Insurance agents would come. City crews would patch what they could. A boy in a cheap plastic mask that looked sort of like Nolan's face watched him with wide eyes. "You saved us," the boy said. Nolan looked down. "I helped," he said. "A lot of people did." The boy nodded, but didn't look away. "My mum says you're dangerous," he said. "She says you could hurt us too." "She's right," Nolan said softly. The boy blinked. "Then why did you save us?" "Because I wanted to," Nolan said. "Because I should." The boy thought about that, then shrugged. "Okay." He jogged off toward his friends. Spider-Man dropped onto a nearby lamppost, hanging upside down. "If it helps," Peter said, "my Aunt May also thinks you're dangerous. She also bakes cookies for people she thinks are dangerous. So it's kind of all one big thing." Nolan huffed. "Does she think you're dangerous?" "Oh yeah," Peter said. "I bring trouble home like stray cats." He fell silent, watching the workers patch the smashed road. "You did good," Peter said at last. "You kept him off us. You could have gone through that portal and run. You didn't." Nolan's mouth tightened. "I've run enough." He looked up at the sky where the tear had been. "I didn't just land here," he said quietly. "I led them here, even if I didn't mean to." Peter swung himself upright and sat on the top of the lamppost. "Maybe," he said, "but you're also the reason we're still here to complain about it." He looked at Nolan's bare arms. "Also, just saying, you need a new jacket. That last one died a hero." Nolan almost smiled. "Maybe I'll try a different color," he said. "Baby steps," Peter said. "Next up, finishing a whole meal." Nolan looked at the boarded-up diner window. "Don't push your luck," he said. But he knew he would try, because now, this messy, loud, fragile street was part of what he wanted to protect, and Viltrum, Doom, Thanos, and anyone else watching would have to go through him to get it. Weeks passed. The world did not forget the fight in Queens. It replayed it from every angle. On one channel, they slowed the footage of Nolan stepping in front of the beam to protect the kids. On another, they froze the frame where he smashed Conquest through 3 stories of a building. Talk shows argued about him every night. "Is Omni-Man a hero?" a host asked, "or a disaster we call when we are out of options?" On the street, the talk was simpler. "He saved my cousin," someone said on a bus. "He wrecked my uncle's shop," someone else replied. Kids wore capes with rough red symbols drawn on them. Others pretended to be Spider-Man or Iron Man and fought Viltrumite invaders in the park. Parents watched with mixed looks. Some smiled, some frowned. The Avengers adjusted in their own way. They built things, they trained, they argued, and Nolan got used to having 2 lives again. In the daytime, Nolan was Mr. Grayson in Queens. He went to the grocery store. He carried his own bags. He waited in line behind people who did not know he could punch through tanks. He fixed a leaky faucet in his bathroom by watching a video on his phone. He went back to the diner. The window had been repaired. The owner gave him a hard look the first time he walked in. "You're the guy from the news," the man said. "Yes," Nolan said. "You broke my window," the man said. "I'm sorry," Nolan said. "I tried to catch people. The fight." The man held up a hand. "You also stopped that thing from dropping a building on my wife," he said. "So we'll call it even. You want your usual?" Nolan blinked. "You remember my order?" The man snorted. "You ordered enough food for 3 people. Hard to forget." He slid Nolan a menu anyway. Nolan ordered the big breakfast again. He never finished it all, but he liked the simple act of trying. He sat by the window and watched the street. Sometimes Peter dropped by, half out of breath from school stuff or work. Sometimes Luke Cage walked past outside and nodded. When the call came, Nolan's other life woke up. His phone would buzz with a code word from Tony, or Strange's portal would open in the alley, or Cap would send a short text, "We need you, now." Then Nolan would stand, drop a few bills on the table, and walk out. The sky would open, and he would fly. He helped Thor push back a small Kree raiding party in orbit. He tore apart a rogue asteroid that had been nudged toward the planet by some careless cosmic event. He flew Strange through a chaotic pocket of broken space to seal a tiny reality leak over the Pacific. He tried, each time, to move the fight away from cities. He took hits instead of letting beams strike ships or planes. It did not always work. Nothing ever did, not fully. But the numbers on the news, casualties, damage, were smaller when he was there. At night, he came back to Queens, back to the small apartment, back to the sound of neighbors' lives. It was not peace, but it was a pattern. That was something. In Wakanda's hidden lab, light danced across vibranium. T'Challa watched as Shuri and Tony argued over a hologram. "You cannot simply bolt rockets onto everything. Stark," Shuri said. "That is not a design. That is a cry for help." "Rockets make everything better," Tony said. "This is known. Also, we are not making a suit. We are making a containment harness." The design in front of them looked like a set of sleek dark bands and plates that could click together around a body. Strange's glowing symbols wrapped around it like a net. "This is not just metal," Strange said. "It is also a spell. The metal will soak up impact. The magic will bind his energy. Used together, it will not stop him forever, but it will slow him. For seconds." "Seconds are all we get with people like that," Tony said. T'Challa nodded. "We do not want to use this, but we cannot ignore the need." Shuri tapped the side of the hologram. "It will be heavy," she said, "even for him, and it will feel like a collar. Are you sure you wish to show him this?" "Yes," Steve said from the doorway. They turned. He walked in, shield on his back. "If we hide it and he finds out later," Steve said, "he will feel betrayed. We can't build trust on lies." "You still trust him," T'Challa said. "I trust what he's trying to be," Steve said. "And I know what he's afraid of. He is his own biggest worry." Tony sighed. "So we show the walking doomsday device the thing we built to slow him down. Great. I love my job." Strange touched the hologram. It settled into a final shape. "Call it what you like," Strange said. "I call it a promise. To this world. And to him." Far from any world, the dark between stars was still. A small, rocky moon floated near the edge of a system no one had named. Nolan stood on its surface, looking at a small blue dot in the distance. Earth. The fight with the Kree was over. The wreckage of their small strike craft drifted nearby, glowing faintly from broken engines. Nolan had pushed the ship off course when it tried to slingshot around the sun and dive at the planet. He drew a slow breath, though he did not need air here. Old habit. "You stare at that world as if it is the only one," a voice said behind him. He turned. Thanos stood there. He was not really there, not in body. Nolan could tell. There was no sound of weight on rock, no heat from skin. The image of the Titan was a projection, a mind walking in another mind space. Still, it felt solid. Nolan shifted his stance. "You're Thanos," he said. The Titan inclined his head. "You know my name. Few worlds say it without fear." "I've heard enough," Nolan said. "You send armies. You play with lives like numbers." Thanos smiled slightly. "And you have never done the same?" Nolan's jaw clenched. "I did not come to fight," Thanos said. "I came to talk. If I wanted you dead, I would not send illusions." He stepped closer, hands behind his back. "You are a soldier without an army," Thanos said. "You fled your empire, but it never truly left you. You work with heroes now, but you do not wear their colors. You are between places, between roles. That is a hard place to stand." "I'm doing fine," Nolan said. "Are you?" Thanos asked. "You throw yourself at every threat they point you at. You take the heaviest blows. You move faster than they can. They will let you because it keeps them safe. They will not stop you from burning yourself out. Why would they? It benefits them." Nolan said nothing. He stared at the blue dot. "I believe in balance," Thanos said. "That word frightens them. They see only killing. But I have seen worlds tear themselves apart under their own weight. Too many people, too few resources, endless noise and suffering. I seek to fix that." "You slaughter half of them," Nolan said. "You call it fixing." Thanos shrugged. "Your empire does worse. At least I am honest about what I do." He tilted his head, studying Nolan's profile. "You could help me," Thanos said. "With your strength, you could cut away the worst rot in this universe. You would not have to pretend to be something small. You would not have to sit in diners and count coins." Nolan frowned. "You've been watching me." "I watch all pieces that matter," Thanos said. "You are interesting. You are strong. You are guilty. Guilt can make a man weak. It can also make him fierce. I offer you purpose. Not for my whole plan, if that offends you. But there are tyrants, warlords, parasites. Help me remove them. Help me make a universe that does not choke on itself." "And when you're done," Nolan asked, "do you stop?" Thanos was silent for a moment. "If the job is done, there is no need to keep cutting," he said. "I am not like your empire. I do not conquer for pride." Nolan looked at him. The Titan's eyes were calm. There was no madness there, not the kind Nolan knew. There was certainty. That was worse. "You talk like Viltrum," Nolan said. "You dress it up in different words. That's all." He turned away. Thanos watched him for a moment. "They will always fear you," Thanos said. "As long as you stand by them, you will feel their eyes on your back. With me, you would be free of that. We would fear only failure." "I'd rather be feared for what I might do," Nolan said, "than for what I'm sure to do with you." Thanos nodded once, as if he expected that answer. "You are not ready," he said. "Yet. When your people come, when you are pulled back into the same patterns, remember that there was another choice." The image faded. Nolan was alone again. He stared at the blue dot. "I am not your weapon," he said to the empty dark. He did not know if he believed it yet, but he wanted to. He flew back to Earth. The Viltrumite message did not come as a person. Not this time. It came as a shard of metal. Nolan found it floating in high orbit a week later, flashing a pattern only he could recognize. Viltrumite code. Old, simple, brutal. He caught it in his hand. It hummed with stored energy. He pressed his thumb into a small notch. The metal flared. A red hologram snapped up, showing the face of the current Grand Regent. Hard eyes. A beard like stone. "Nolan," the Regent's voice said. "We thought you dead. We were wrong." The hologram did not care where he was. It did not see the stars around him. It spoke like a recorded stone tablet. "You ran," the Regent said. "You abandoned your mission. You struck your own blood and left him. You shamed us." Nolan's jaw tightened. "You also survived," the Regent went on. "You found a new universe, a rich one, full of power and resources, full of strong defenders who will test us." The Regent's eyes seemed to look straight at him. "Viltrum does not waste assets," he said. "We offer you a choice." Nolan's grip on the shard tightened. "Return to us," the Regent said. Lead the spearhead into this universe. Use your knowledge of its champions. Break them from within. Bring us this new sky, and your son's death will be forgiven in our records. His life, if he still draws breath, will be considered. The hint of mercy was thin, but it was there. If you refuse, the Regent said, we will still come. We will burn this new world down to its bones and build our own on the ashes. Your son's memory will be erased. Your line will be a joke in our halls. The image flickered. You know our strength, the Regent said. You know our patience. Think carefully, Nolan. Decide who you truly are. The shard went dark. Nolan floated in silence, fingers digging into the metal. They knew where he was, what he might do. They gave him the same old fork in the road, serve or stand in front of the Empire and get crushed. Once, the choice would have been easy. Finish the mission, prove loyalty, show Mark that resistance was useless. Now he had watched Peter bring him groceries. He had heard Steve argue in his favor. He had seen kids in Queens cheer when he blocked a beam with his body. He thought of Mark again, of the crater, of the blood, of his son's eyes full of tears and rage. If you had stayed, he whispered to the shard, what would he see when he looked at you now? He squeezed. The Viltrumite metal was almost as tough as he was. Almost. It groaned, then shattered in his hand. The broken pieces drifted away. I'm not coming home, Nolan said. He flew down to Earth to tell the others everything. They all met in the main briefing room again. Nolan stood at the end of the table. Steve, Tony, Natasha, Bruce, Strange, Thor, Fury, and T'Challa sat and stood around it. He told them about Thanos' visit, about the shard, about the offer. He did not hide anything. They will come, he finished, with or without me. And Thanos? Fury asked. He wants to use me, Nolan said, to cut away what he calls rot. I told him no. Tony exhaled. So you turned down the purple death god and your home planet in 1 week. Busy schedule. Nolan gave a small shrug. It seemed like a bad time to switch sides. Steve almost smiled. You could have left, Steve said. Gone with them. Tried to make your life simple again. It wouldn't be simple, Nolan said. It would just be old and bloody. He looked around the table. I came here by accident, he said, but I stayed on purpose. I want to help you. I want to protect this world, not as a weapon you point, as myself. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know it isn't with Thanos or Viltrum. There was a quiet moment. T'Challa broke it. We have been working on something, he said, as a promise and a warning to you and to ourselves. He tapped the table. The hologram rose. The containment harness glowed above the surface. Dark metal bands, strangest symbols. Nolan's eyes narrowed. What is that? A last resort, T'Challa said. If you lose control, or if your empire takes you, it will not kill you, but it will slow you, long enough for us to act. You built a cage, Nolan said. His voice was flat. A net, Strange said. Not a cell. Tony met his eyes. We weren't going to pretend we didn't think about this, he said. Because you already know we did. You'd be stupid not to, and you're not stupid. Steve said, we didn't build it because we expect you to betray us. We built it because if anything happens, if someone breaks your mind, if some magic takes you over, if Viltrum finds a way to pull you back and send you at us, we need a way to stop you without killing you. Nolan stared at the floating shape. It feels like chains, he said. Yes, T'Challa said. It does. It also feels like insurance. For you, and for us. Nolan looked at Steve. You agree with this? I hate it, Steve said, but I also asked for it, because I've seen what happens when we ignore worst cases. It costs more lives later. Nolan let out a slow breath. You tell me I'm free, he said. You tell me I can choose. But you also build this. Yes, Steve said. Because freedom without safety for everyone else isn't real freedom, not in our line of work. Nolan thought of Doom's words. They will tolerate you and watch you. He thought of Thanos' offer to be free, to cut. He also thought of the little boy in Queens who had asked why he saved him. He stepped closer to the hologram. It flickered, showing how it would wrap around a body. You plan to use this on me without my consent if needed, he said. Yes, Fury said. If the alternative is millions of dead, we will. Nolan nodded once. Then we are honest, he said. I can live with that. He looked at Steve. On one condition, Nolan said. Steve's brows lifted. Name it. You don't keep it a secret from me, Nolan said. If you think I'm slipping, if you think I'm becoming a danger, you tell me before you reach for this thing. You give me a chance to stand down on my own. Steve held his gaze. Deal, he said. Tony exhaled. Well, that went better than expected. Nolan looked back at the hologram. You said you had a promise too, he said. Not just a warning. Steve nodded. He reached into a folder and pulled out a slim packet. We talked to the UN, Steve said, and a lot of others. It took some negotiation. He slid the packet across the table to Nolan. Read, he said. The words were simple. Most of it was legal language, but the core idea was clear. It was an agreement between Earth's governments, the Avengers, and Nolan Grayson, also known as Omni-Man. It named him something new. Special Defender and Independent Protector of Earth. He was not part of any army. He was not owned by any country. He had the right to act to defend the planet against external threats. In return, he agreed to follow certain rules. No starting wars, no acting as an attacker for any one nation, no killing unless there was no other way to stop an attack. If he broke those rules, the agreement gave the Avengers and Earth the right to act against him, including with the harness. At the bottom was a space for his name. You want me to sign this? Nolan asked. Yes, Steve said, because then you are not just a guest or a loose cannon. You are part of our line, with rights and duties. You're not above the rules, you're inside them. Like you, Natasha said. Like me, Steve said. I broke rules before when I thought they were wrong. I live with that. You will too, if you have to. But we start here, together. Nolan looked at the paper, the lines, the small words. On Viltrum, deals were spoken in blood and battle. Here, they used ink. Do you trust me? Nolan asked. Enough to give you this, Steve said. Nolan thought of Thanos' offer. He thought of the shard. He thought of Doom's invitation. All of those had been about using his power. This one was about sharing it and holding it back. He picked up the pen. His hand shook slightly as he wrote his name. Nolan Grayson. When he finished, he set the pen down. It's done, Steve said. Tony clapped his hands once. Welcome to the team, official, not an employee. Fury grunted. Now that the paperwork's done, can we get back to not dying? Strange's eyes shifted suddenly, unfocusing. He frowned. About that, Strange said. We may have a problem. In Nolan's mind, the word problem now meant one of two things. Either it was something small, like a demon loose in a subway, or it was something huge, like a Viltrumite battle fleet. This time it was somewhere in between. They saw it first on Strange's map and Tony's radar, a cluster of signals at the very edge of the solar system. Small, fast, not on any known chart. Scoutcraft, Nolan said as soon as he saw the pattern. This is how Viltrum looks at a new world. They send probes and a small escort. They watch, they measure, then they report back. How long until they get closer? Tony asked. They won't, Nolan said. They'll stay just outside your planet's main defense lines. They think you can't reach them. Can we? Carol Danvers asked. She stood near the window, arms folded over her chest. She had arrived in a streak of light minutes ago when the alarms went off. Nolan studied the readings. If we push hard, he said. Yes, we can reach them. We can hit them before they finish their scan. Then we go, Carol said. Thor rested Mjolnir on his shoulder. I would like to greet these scouts, he said. Properly. Steve nodded. We can't let them have a clean picture of us, he said. We don't chase them forever, but we show them this isn't an easy target. Strange opened a portal. It showed the darkness at the edge of the system, where the small dots of light moved. Ready? He asked. Nolan stepped forward. Thor and Carol flanked him. Behind them hovered Tony and Rhodey in armor. Strange would close the door behind them. Let's say hello, Nolan said. They flew through. The scouts looked like long, slender needles, a Viltrumite design made to cut through space quiet and fast. Their hulls were grey-white, built for speed, not for long fights. They did not expect company. Nolan felt them before they saw him. The energy signature was familiar. The engine hum. The way the tiny craft moved in a tight web formation. He hated how much he remembered it. One scout turned, sensors flaring. For a fraction of a second, Nolan saw the pilot's face on his inner vision. Young, hard, eager. Then he hit the ship. He didn't tear it apart this time. He smashed it just enough to break the engines and send it tumbling off course. He didn't want too much wreckage heading toward the inner system. Carol streaked past him, turning another scout's nose away with a shoulder check that lit her up in blue-white. The ship spun, lost orientation, and started a slow, helpless drift. Thor slammed his hammer into a third, sending lightning crawling over its hull. The system sparked and died. The vessel went dark, floating. Tony targeted a fourth with precise beams, cutting its communication array without blowing the rest. Try not to kill them if we can help it, Steve's voice said in their ears from far away. We want to send a message without starting the war today. Copy, Tony said. Defanging, not decapitating. It worked well for a minute. Then the main scout ship, the central one, larger and more armored, kicked its engines into overdrive and turned away from them. It was already sending a burst. Nolan saw the energy flare. They're transmitting, he shouted. They got enough data. They're sending it through the tear or toward a relay. Carol gritted her teeth. I can catch it, she said. She poured on speed. Light wrapped around her as she chased the main scout. The distance between them shrank, then grew again as the ship engaged a burst system tuned for long-range jumps. Strange, Tony shouted. Can you cut the signal? Strange's voice was tight. I can deflect some of it, he said. Not all. This is their home ground, their coding, their keys. Nolan stared at the main scout. He could reach it, if he pushed his speed to the limit, if he forgot about the strain on his body, if he left the others behind. For a heartbeat, he thought about it. Then he stopped. No, he had seen this game before. Viltrum sent scouts in patterns. If he broke himself now chasing this one, they would gain more than they lost. He made a quick decision. Focus on disabling, not chasing, he said. We cut down what they can report, not wipe it all. They already know I'm here. They know you have heavy hitters. That war was always coming. We make sure they know we won't be easy. Thor nodded. Spoken like a general, he said. Carol cursed under her breath, but slowed. Fine, she said. We hit what we can reach. In the end, they disabled 5 of the 7 scouts. 2 escaped. One of those carried a partial data package. Strange managed to warp some of the signal into empty space, but he could not erase it all. The message that reached Viltrum, somewhere in the deep wild of another universe, was blurry, but not blank. It showed a world with strange defenders, with magic, with gods, with tech, and with one Viltrumite who had turned his fists around. Back on Earth, the debrief was short. We didn't stop them, Tony said, but we messed up their view. We bought time, Strange said. Weeks, months, maybe years. Hard to say. How long does your empire usually take? Fury asked Nolan. Years, Nolan said. Decades, sometimes. They move carefully. They want to know exactly what they face before they commit. So this is not an invasion, Steve said. It's a knock on the door. Yes, Nolan said. They will talk about what they saw. Some will say this universe is not worth the trouble. Others will want to test themselves. And you, Natasha asked, what do you want? Nolan thought about the empty scouts drifting at the edge of the system, the young faces he had not killed. I want to be ready, he said, so that when they decide whatever they choose, we can answer. Steve nodded. Then that's our new normal, he said. We live, we train, we protect, and we know there's something out there watching. Tony raised his hand. So, omni-plan time? Steve groaned softly. Please don't use that term in official files. Tony grinned. Too late. They laughed, a little tired, but real. Nolan watched them. They were not a perfect army. They argued. They doubted. They worried about lawyers and damage reports. They also kept showing up. He found that he liked that more than he had expected. He also knew Doom was watching from his castle. He knew Thanos kept track from his throne. He knew Viltrum's council would speak his name like a curse. But when he thought of home now, the first picture that came to mind was a small, greasy diner in Queens. He decided his next move would start there. The next day was quiet. No alarms, no tears in the sky, no alien battles, just a cloudy afternoon and a light breeze pushing trash along the sidewalk. Nolan walked to the diner with his hands in his pockets. He took the same booth. The waitress gave him a look that mixed worry and curiosity and something like respect. The usual, she asked. Yes, he said. She wrote it down. You know, she added, some people say you're trouble. Some say you're a hero. I don't care. You pay in cash and you tip. That's enough for me. Fair, Nolan said. He waited. His phone was on the table. It did not buzz. Strange did not open a portal in the middle of the room. No ship fell from the sky. The food came. Eggs, bacon, hash browns, pancakes, coffee. He picked up his fork. He took a bite. He chewed. He swallowed. Nothing exploded. He took another bite and another. He cut the pancakes into neat squares the way Mark used to and ate them slowly. Halfway through, someone slid into the other side of the booth. Peter Parker, in jeans and a hoodie, no mask. His hair was messy. He smelled faintly of printer ink and cheap soap. Figured you'd be here, Peter said. Shouldn't you be in school? Nolan asked. It's Saturday, Peter said. Even vigilantes and nerds get one day off. Sometimes. He nodded at the plate. Hey, you're actually eating. I'm proud. Don't jinx it, Nolan said. Peter held up his hands. No jinxing, I promise. They sat in silence for a moment while Nolan ate. The sound of the fork on the plate was strangely loud. "How are you?" Peter asked. It was a simple question. Nolan had been asked more complex things before. How fast can you fly? How hard can you hit? How many soldiers do you need? No one had ever really meant, "How are you?" "I am tired," Nolan said, "but not like before. Then I was tired of lying. Now I'm tired from working." Peter nodded. "Yeah, hero tired. That's the good kind, mostly." "You?" Nolan asked. "Always broke," Peter said. "Always behind on homework. Always late to everything. Also tired, but I'm okay." He watched Nolan eat another bite. "You turned down some big offers," Peter said. "Thanos, your empire, Doom. That's a lot of pressure." "Steve told you?" Nolan asked. "No," Peter said. "But we all talk, and also Tony complains when he's scared." Nolan huffed. "I turned them down," Nolan said. "But it doesn't feel like it's over. They will come back with bigger offers or bigger fists." "Yeah," Peter said. "They will. That's kind of the thing with villains and empires. They don't call it quits easily." He leaned forward. "But you know," Peter said, "you also did something harder. You signed that paper." Nolan looked at him. "You chose us," Peter said. "With rules, with limits, with people who will tell you no. That's a big deal. Guys like you don't do that much." "Guys like me?" Nolan asked. "Super strong, super old, super scary," Peter said. "You know, the usual." Nolan made a small sound that might have been a laugh. "It felt strange," he said, thinking of the pen and the line where his name now sat. "To put my name under theirs. To accept that they can stop me, if needed." Peter shrugged. "That's kind of what family is," he said. "People who love you enough to pull you back when you're being dumb." Nolan thought of Debbie, of Mark, of the way Mark had tried to reach him in that awful fight. "Do you miss them?" Peter asked softly. "Your family?" Nolan stared at his coffee. "Every day," he said. Peter nodded. "I miss mine too," he said. "It doesn't go away, but you find new people to worry about. It doesn't fix the hole, but it makes more lights around it." Nolan looked at him. "You are very young to talk like that," Nolan said. "Yeah," Peter said. "Life did not check my age before it threw stuff at me." They sat for a moment in shared quiet. Outside, a group of kids ran past the window. One wore a Spider-Man mask. Another had a red towel tied around his shoulders, flapping like a cape. "Omni-man," the cape kid shouted. "I am Omni-man, and you're the bad Viltrum guy." "No way, I'm Spider-Man," the other yelled. "You can't be both." Their voices faded as they ran down the block. Nolan watched them. "Do you ever worry," he asked, "that they will think it's all a game? That they will not understand how close the danger is?" Peter followed his gaze. "I used to," Peter said. "Now I think, if they're playing, it means we did our job. We kept it far enough away that they can pretend. That's kind of the point." Nolan took another bite of pancake. He chewed slowly. He noticed something as he reached for his coffee. His plate was almost empty. No alarms, no portals, no calls. He finished the last piece of pancake. He drank the rest of his coffee. He set the fork down on an empty plate. He sat back. For a second it felt like the whole universe took a breath with him. Peter grinned. "You did it," he said. "Full meal. No invasions." Nolan nodded, a small real smile on his face. "It feels good," he said. "Get used to it," Peter said. "We're going to need you in fighting shape. Full, stomach and all." The waitress came by and refilled Nolan's coffee. "Want pie?" she asked. "Maybe later," Nolan said. He paid, left a tip, and stood. Peter walked out with him onto the sidewalk. The city moved around them. Cars, voices, music from an open window. No one screamed. No one ran from falling debris. "Back to work?" Peter asked. "Back to watching," Nolan said. He looked up at the sky. It was just clouds and a bit of blue. Somewhere beyond that, at the edge of the system, disabled Viltrumite scouts drifted. Somewhere even farther, an empire discussed a troublesome traitor. Doom looked at his screens. Thanos watched his stars. In the sanctum, Stranger's relics glowed softly as he checked the fracture again. In Wakanda, Shuri and T'Challa tested the harness. In the Avengers compound, Steve reviewed training lists. Tony tweaked armor. Fury updated Project Viltrumite. They were all moving pieces on the board. Nolan was one of them now. He bent his knees and rose slowly into the air just a few feet. Peter tilted his head back to watch. "Try not to break the sky," Peter said. "I'll do my best," Nolan said. He hovered there for a moment, looking down at Queens, then up at the distant curve of Earth, then farther, where he could almost feel Viltrum's attention like a cold wind. He was between things, between worlds, between past and future, between war and peace. He did not know how it would end. He did know what he would do next. He would go on patrol. He would listen for strangers' call. He would help when he could, argue when he must, and stand in the way when Viltrum or Thanos or anyone else tried to turn this world into another broken story. He lowered himself back down to the sidewalk. "You're walking?" Peter asked. "For now," Nolan said. They walked together down the street. A man with a newspaper glanced at Nolan, did a double take, and then let it go. A dog barked at a passing car. A nearby TV in a shop window ran a segment with the headline, "Earth's New Protector, the Omni-Man Debate." The sound was low. Nolan did not stop to listen. He already knew the world would argue about him for a long time. He also knew he had finished his meal. One small thing, one quiet victory. The big fights would come. The sky would tear again. Viltrum would make its move. Thanos would not forget. But for now, under the cloudy sky of this loud, fragile world, Nolan Grayson walked with his neighbor and listened to the city breathe. He could live with that. He would fight for it.